there, everyone. What is up? I am Ewan from What Culture Star Wars, and today I am joined by Ben-Roy Turner. Say hi, Ben-Roy.
Hello there.
There we go.
Hi.
We get a classic hello there. I said hi, which means I'm not as big of a Star Wars fan. But yeah, we thought we'd continue the lovely season of The Mandalorian with a little chat that kind of talks about the aftermath of last week's episode, obviously Chapter 13, The Jedi, which, if you didn't know already, and I mean, how wouldn't you know, given it was everywhere, but the fact that Ahsoka Tano appeared and basically refused to train Grogu. Now, this is a big deal because the whole quest for the Mandalorian at this point was we need to find a Jedi to train Grogu because he's a Jedi and he's a space wizard and I'm not a space wizard, so this is kind of a big deal for me. And now everyone has been kind of asking the question of which Jedi could potentially train Grogu. In the next episode, we're going to go to Tython, if everything goes according to plan and the Razor Crest doesn't have a little bit of another mishap, where we'll place Grogu on the Seeing Stone, I think it's called, and then he'll reach out in the Force, and maybe, just maybe, some other Jedi will hear him, or maybe even a Sith. So we thought today would be a nice time to have a nice little chat about which Jedi could potentially be around to train Grogu. Now, Ben, I'm going to ask you first. Who do you think is the most, or the least, just reel off a Jedi who you think might train Grogu?
I'm going to just destroy this video straight. It's going to be Master Mace Windu.
No.
You know, Sam Jackson is coming back, isn't he? He's got one hand. He's falling out that window and he's still there. He's still there. Come on.
No, I refuse to believe. This is the one Star Wars fan theory I can't get behind. I mean, there are plenty of Star Wars fan theories I can't get behind, but the idea that Mace Windu survived Revenge of the Sith is one that is just completely bonkers to me. Like, it's just... I mean, I really like the character for what it's worth, but I just find... I mean, I guess there could be some interesting things you could do with that about Mace Windu being the Jedi who essentially failed in the bid to arrest Palpatine, and he failed in to, you know, see Anakin's betrayal. I mean, they all did, but Mace Windu maybe has an added bit of responsibility there, given the way, you know, he ostracized Anakin from the Order, and the fact that he was dueling Palpatine, so maybe he entered a big, like, depression and, like, went away, but I just don't see it happening. I know Samuel L. Jackson has said that he'd love to come back, but it's just not something that I think is going to happen.
Yeah. It's funny, I feel like if Star Wars had been made chronologically and we didn't have 4, 5, and 6 before 1, 2, 3, we probably would have had him come back if he won like that, because who dies from falling down a big anything anymore? I mean, like, Maul got sliced in half and he managed to survive through the sheer hatred. So, you know, yeah, but I want to know now, you know, on a serious note, who do you think seriously might train little Grogu?
Okay, so I think there are a few serious candidates here, and I'm going to rule out one, and that is Luke Skywalker. Now, there's been some really cool talk recently of potentially Sebastian Stan. You know, everyone's been keen to fan cast him in the role of Luke because he really does look like a young Mark Hamill. Hamill himself is kind of like talked about it on Twitter. Stan in the past has said that he'd be up for, you know, playing Luke. But this was kind of be uncharted territory. And, you know, obviously with what we've seen with ILM in terms of Rogue One, where they basically resurrected Peter Cushing and obviously had Carrie Fisher at the end as well. I do wonder if potentially you could have a young Mark Hamill that's kind of been CGI'd in there, but I don't think that's going to happen. And the main reason I don't think that will happen is that even though we're getting closer and closer into the main Star Wars timeline in terms of broaching the Skywalker saga, at least that kind of feels where the Mandalorian is heading right now, I do think the show would be better to stay away from there. And also the fact that if Luke does pick up Grogu, and he's not around in the sequel trilogy, that implies something terrible happened to Grogu, and no one's going to be down for a happy ending here where it's like, oh, Luke took Grogu away, and then it's just that awkward, you know, 5 years later, and then it's just like, or much longer than that, but like 20 years later, and then it's just like Kylo Ren's just massacred him. I don't think that's going to happen, especially since, you know, it'd be very cruel fate for Grogu to survive one Jedi Temple massacre, to then get whisked away by Luke, and then he'll be like, hey, time to come join me with my nephew Ben Solo, a totally cool Jedi who is not going to turn evil, and then literally just have Luke happen that way.
Yeah, or maybe the Knights of Ren would actually do something. Mate, it's weird because, yeah, I don't... Mando seems to be a way for people to get some Star Wars in, but without the baggage of everything else at the moment. I feel like you didn't say this, but the idea of people wanting Mando to be totally separate from all Star Wars is never going to happen. Like, we've already had some characters breach in. Like, we still got the great mystery of what's Boba Fett going to do. Will we ever have Ahsoka Tano come back? I don't think we will have Ahsoka come back for a while now. But I don't see Luke ever appearing in this. I don't think he should. I think if Sebastian Stan was ever to be Luke, that would be cool in some other little sort of. I think there's scope to do stuff between the long period between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, and what was that great trilogy of books?
The Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, the Aftermath trilogy, which was actually some of the best Star Wars. But jumping off like how I don't think Luke would ever appear, I just don't think Grogu would ever be trained. Now thinking about it, I think the next series might be Mando accepting that he's got to father Grogu for however long, and I could see at some point, like whenever Mando, I'm just speculating further in the future, when Mando sort of like is done, Grogu somehow is taken out of the picture and separated from Din, maybe in a sort of aspect like a la sort of like Thrawn and Ezra getting separated, and some sort of like weird, we're over here on the edge of the galaxy, and then cut to after Rise of Skywalker, and then Grogu's a bit more of an actual character, and maybe we can explain away if we don't ever get like Ezra and Thrawn back, that they got lost in the same sort of place and they've not aged as much. I don't know. I'm sort of like spitballing.
No. I think that's interesting because, like, I think my personal theory for this is that I agree. I don't think Grogu is going to be taken by a Jedi. Yeah. I think it's going to be a case of Grogu is already a Mandalorian foundling. He's already a part of Din's own clan, and I do think maybe Grogu will be the first Mandalorian Jedi since Tar Vizsla. Maybe that'll be a thing. I don't know. We don't know how many Mandalorian Jedi there have been, but I think that could be a potential avenue for them to go down.
Is Grogu going to claim the Darksaber as Grogu's blade?
Maybe. I mean, I think, if we're going to talk about Jedi that I genuinely think, and I mentioned this kind of off the cuff in the review last week, and, we brought it up in the podcast as well, but Cal Kestis, I think you were the first, before What Culture Star Wars was even a thing, you brought it up how Cameron Monaghan's casting in that game felt very deliberate in the sense that now we're approaching that point in time where, Lucasfilm Story Group and Lucasfilm as a whole are kind of really synergizing all the different mediums of Star Wars into one thing, and Cameron Monaghan already has great experience with TV. Who's to say that Cal Kestis, given where the Jedi Fallen Order games seem to be going in terms of him going and exploring the history of the Zephyr and ancient Force cultures, kind of placing him further and further away from the original trilogy, and given he already has that baggage of at that one time wanting to rebuild the Jedi Order by finding all those Force-sensitive younglings, only now in after Return of the Jedi, even though the Empire is still a threat, they're nowhere near as big a threat as they once were. So maybe that's the added impetus he has there to go back and maybe train Grogu. Obviously there would be a 20-year time gap or whatever, so he'd have to be much older, but that's a potential avenue they could go down. But ultimately I do think that in this scenario, where the show is going, you can't have Grogu without the Mandalorian now, and I think like you said, I think it's going to be a case of Din learning to accept that he now has a child that he's going to have to raise, and maybe one day Grogu will be the new Mandalorian Jedi.
Yeah, because you got to think. I'm trying to think long term. Like, we probably get like maybe 5 years in total, like the Mandalorian. Like, because no one's gonna want to, as much as like some projects are good. No one wants to do the same project forever. Like, do you think eventually like the Mandalorian ends with like another sort of battle on Mandalore, the recapture of Mandalore for the Mandalorians, and the end of Grand Moff, the end of Moff Gideon, and now I've said it, I feel like the Darksaber might go to Grogu as the second technically Jedi Mando, and then Cal Kestis could come along, and I think as you said, like as I think it's so deliberate that they cast a human who does acting in TV rather than making a face of their own, rather than just like let's just make another man that kind of like like they did with Kyle Katarn. Kyle Katarn was just there was based on a human model at one point, but there was no plans for Kyle to ever like be in a film or anything with the main cast. You know what I mean? So I feel like when Mando ends, I think it's going to lead into Baby Grogu going off into the future at some point and turn up. But yeah, I think Cal Kestis maybe, because I think I don't want anyone new, basically. I think that there's too many Jedi now, or too many Force sensitive people, and there's probably even more in comics and books that I've not read that are have escaped. And sure, the Palpatine was never going to get everyone. It was never going to get all the eggs in one basket. There were always going to be some rolling about that he's trying to scramble for, sort of thing. But I think that we're hitting the point where Luke was meant to be sort of like not the chosen one, and him and Leia, but like, you know, they were meant to be like sort of special in a way where it makes us feel special. In fact, every time you add a new Force sensitive or even a surviving Jedi, it kind of diminishes that and waters it down a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, obviously, you know, we have Ezra to factor into this as well. We still don't know what his, you know, his unique connection to the Force is, that he's really one with nature and stuff. And, you know, obviously he's away with Thrawn right now. There are so many loose ends that need to be tied up, but obviously, you know, part of the fun is waiting for them to get tied up in the first place. So yeah, I think we both agree that even though there are potential Jedi candidates that are valuable, that are, you know, valid, that could train Grogu, we're both kind of the opinion that going forward, Grogu is going to be more of a Mandalorian than they are a Jedi. But yeah, let us know what you think is going to become of Grogu down in the comments below. Do you think a specific Jedi, be it Mace Windu, Cal Kestis, Luke Skywalker, whatever, do you think they will train Grogu, or do you think he's actually going to stay with Mando and live happily ever after on Mandalore with the Darksaber wielded by his side? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to What Culture Star Wars. We're going to have loads of new videos coming to you every single week, and of course the Mandalorian season finale will be coming up in the next few weeks as well, so that's very excited to get, you know. And then that's it. Basically, go check us out on whatculture.com as well, because we have written stuff there. You can find more of me on Twitter if you want to, at YouRuinsThings, and you can find Ben-Roy on Twitter if you want to, at
Ben-Roy.
And we will see you soon. Bye.
This party's over.